Good morning, students.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
sir.
Good morning, sir.
I hope we are all doing fine today and all our families are safe. For the word of the day, we will talk about mythology. Mythology is perceived as the way people from different parts of the world conceive their origins and the reasons behind events, such as natural phenomena. It also talks about their relations with the higher powers, or their different gods. According to Hamilton, mythology relates humans and natures in magical explanations of powerful gods and heroes as they overcome obstacles to reach a certain goal. Mythology also explains the hows and whys of the universe and can also touch religious matters where supernatural beings are worshipped. I have mentioned that mythology can be related to cosmology, such as the reasons behind the existence of a certain natural phenomenon. Narrative tradition, that is how mythology is defined with the purpose of explaining and describing phenomena relevant to their people. Stories are told about heroes and gods and even how humanity was created. Basically, mythology became the basis of their beliefs in their origin, how the world was created, and why a certain event is happening in this world. In fact, mythology in different cultures was the most plausible explanation for every natural event. Donna Rosenberg stated in her book entitled World Mythology, an anthology of great myths and epics, that myths reflect human nature with its needs and desires, hopes and fears. Myths reveal the human condition. Creation myths satisfy the needs to have roots. Putting together cosmic and mythology, termed as cosmic mythology, talks about the origin of the nature of the universe in connection with their gods. Heroes and gods were mostly the center of such stories. Now, as we talk about heroes, mythology, gods, and natural phenomena, we will have a very exciting activity. I am very privileged to have you as my students because this class is really rich in culture. So, I would love to hear more from you and from the country you came from. I will let you introduce yourselves and you will tell a story about your country's known mythology and its relevance to your culture. Let's start. Starting with you, Sherlyn, to be followed by Ingrid, then Najette, and Aegis, and lastly, Beverly. Okay, you may proceed, Sherlyn.
The Rain Came by Grace Ogot. The story starts when the chief came back from the witchman house and was told that his only daughter will be the sacrifice. His heart was totally doomed, but there were no other choice but to sacrifice her daughter to the lake monster. Labonga selected Uganda to die for the villagers' benefit for them to have rain. Uganda feels very sad. The villagers prepared a big feast for her before she went on the journey to the lake. When Uganda went to the lake, she is very terrified as she thinks that she has been followed by the lake monster. She soon ran and finally fainted. As soon as Usinda appeared to save Uganda, thunder came and the rain poured. So Africans believe that when it rains, according to various tribes, God is sweeping or God's blessings were falling. African myths provide a religious context for both the existence of life. They also believe that rain is a symbolism of sadness or good fortune. The importance of rain to Africans is that for the survival of human, animal, and plant, rain is the center of agricultural cycle, and most Africans are anxious with regard to water resources, making rainmaking and related rituals and myths a key part of traditional African life, cosmology, and world views. So, this story enlightens us how traditional people blindly believe in baseless and ruthless practices without any judgment of rationality of their activities. In the story, an African tribe faces a harsh and desolate time because their tribe is facing or experiencing a severe drought, and as a result, the livestock is dying from dehydration, the crops are drying out, and the tribe's chief is called upon to remedy the situation. So the chief discovered the only way to eliminate the drought is by sacrificing his daughter in a traditional ritual.
Thank you very much, Miss Sherlyn, for that wonderful sharing of yours. Now may we hear from Miss Ingrid.
According to a popular Japanese myth, the cause of the earthquakes is caused by the giant fish named Namazu. He is considered one of the monsters in the Japanese mythology and folklore causing misfortune. Only the god named Kashima can immobilize Namazu with the help of the heavy capstone. He will push Namazu against the foundations of earth. The Japanese archipelago has suffered periodic and devastating earthquakes throughout our history, and for the record, 10% of the world's seismic activities have occurred in the place Japan. And this is the cause for the creation of Namazu, which personified the events and was a mechanism that allowed people to explain and justify the seemingly random occurrence. The catfish Namazu, swimming in the waters deep beneath the earth, is thus an answer to the cause of the movement under the earth. Closely associated with the thunder gods, Namazu is seen as their counterpart. Below the earth, there was no other earthquake god, but later then they discovered Nai no Kami, who appears around the 7th century CE and later became identified with Namazu. In the Meiji period years 1868 to 1912 CE, Nai no Kami was separated again and given his own personification. Although Namazu was capable of great destruction in Japan, help was at hand from the heroic thunder and warrior god Takemikazu no Mikoto, or Kajima Daimyojin. And digging down the earth, used the stone to weigh down Namazu's head, restricting movements and also limiting the frequency or at least intensity of the earthquakes that he can make. The 15-centimeter tip of the massive stone, which projects through the earth's surface, can be seen at the Kashima Shrine of Hitachi, to the northeast of Tokyo. Thus, there is a popular saying, listen, even if the earth moves, have no fear, for the Kashima Kami, or the spirit, holds the Kaname Ishi in place. And now, Namazu represents the idea of Yo Naoshi, which saw the poor as an opportunity to shake up the wealthy classes. This idea became especially popular following a series of earthquakes in the Edo period. The idea includes the hope that the poor will inherit the wealth of the rich. This role reversal has meant that Namazu is sometimes associated not with misfortune but good fortune. This is manifested in shrines or depots sacred to a local deity with the aspect of Namazu.
Thank you very much, Miss Ingrid. Now we have Aegis and Miss Najette for their sharing.
The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerian flood from my country, Mesopotamia, which is known the Iraq and Kuwait today. The Flood Myth. The Sumerian hero Gilgamesh traveled the world in search of way to cheat death. On one of his journey, he came across an old man named Utnapishtim, who told Gilgamesh a story from centuries past. The gods brought a flood that swallowed the earth. The gods were angry at mankind, so they sent a flood to destroy him. The god E warned Utnapishtim and instructed him to build an enormous boat to save himself, his family, and the seed of all living things. He does so, and the gods brought rain, which caused the water to rise for many days. When the rain subsided, the boat landed on a mountain, and Utnapishtim set loose first a dove, then a swallow, and finally a raven, which found land. And the god Ishtar created a rainbow and placed it in the sky as a reminder to the gods and a pledge to mankind that there would be no more floods. And that was the story of the Sumerian flood myth.
So my homemate summarized the story, the Epic of Gilgamesh. So in relation to our country, the Epic of Gilgamesh is based on a real king. So the king Gilgamesh is thought to have ruled the city of Uruk, which is my hometown, Iraq. So the legends and myths we were built upon the king's actual deeds, and that become the Epic of Gilgamesh. So it is said that it is a masterpiece in ancient Iraq, the Epic of Gilgamesh. And in relation to the religion, water is stated in the story, which symbolizes the physical cleansing of the heroes, that they have to take a bath after their adventures. And that's actually their ritual or in their spiritual belief. It is also similar to the Christians' practice, their baptism.
A wonderful story from Miss Aegis and Miss Najette. Now we have Miss Beverly.
The story of how the four seasons came to be originated with Demeter, the Greek mythological goddess of the harvest. She was the goddess who blessed the earth and made sure that everyone had a great harvest. However, according to the stories, whether or not the harvest would be good or not depended largely in her moods. After suffering the greatest heartbreak of her life, the four seasons were born. Here's a look at the story of how the seasons came to be. Demeter is one of those goddesses who live on Mount Olympus. Since she was the goddess of the harvest, however, she could often come down from where she lived in order to check on the progress of the crops on the earth. She loved her daughter Persephone so much that she couldn't bear being separated from her. When she came down from the mountain, she would bring her daughter with her. Persephone was especially known for her beauty and was also described to be particularly happy and carefree child. One legend states that wherever she walked, flowers would grow in her path. She could often be found picking bundles of very flowers she caused to grow in order to present it to her mother Demeter as a gift. She always portrayed as happy in harmony with every living creature. No one of the trips that Persephone took with her mother Hades caught a glimpse of the beautiful girl as she was in a field picking flowers. Hades was the brother of Zeus and Poseidon, and the ruler of the underworld, and he was constantly surrounded by images of death. The fact that Persephone was not only beautiful but also full of life, was especially appealing to him. Not only that, but he was incredibly lonely. He wanted to make Persephone his queen. When Hades saw Persephone picking flowers in the field, Demeter was nowhere to be found. Persephone had strayed from her mother's sides in order to pick a particular beautiful flower for her. Hades used this opportunity to grab her and take her down to the underworld. She became his queen by force, and Demeter had no idea what happened. She just knew that her daughter was gone. In her grief and depression, all the crops died, and the harvest was ruined. Because the relationship between Hades and Zeus is a complicated one. Zeus didn't initially want to get involved with the conflict. However, Demeter's depression was affecting every living thing and, according to some sources, led to a thing that lasted a full year. At first, Zeus tried talking to Demeter about her problem, but she said that she wouldn't end the thing until her daughter came back to her. Zeus had no choice. He struck a deal with Hades that would allow Persephone to be by her side for 6 months out of the year. Thus, the 4 seasons were born. During spring and summer, Persephone was by her mother's side, Demeter, and the harvest was allowed to thrive. In fall and winter, Persephone was with Hades to her husband, which would cause Demeter to be depressed. Relevance of the culture. Spring is officially a full swing and a grace. The season is marked with many special costumes and traditions. One of the most famous of the smartest, which dates all the way back to the ancient times in Greece. A special way to mark the Martes season is by wearing a beautiful Martes bracelet to celebrate the arrival of warmer weather. The Martes bracelet is a reminder of history, culture, and wonderful spring days ahead. The word Martes comes from the Greek word for March and can be traced all the way back to ancient Greece. Back in those days, the ancient Greeks worshipped a pantheon of different gods. These gods were designated to various aspects of everyday life and actions. The goddess Demeter was thought to bring good harvest and control and fertility of the earth. According to Martes legend, the ancient Greeks performed a ritual to please the gods Demeter. They wore threads around their wrist and feet during this ritual. These threads were called kruki and evolved into what we know today as the Martes bracelet. The bracelet protected the wearer from illness and the strong spring sun. The bracelet is a marker of spring season in modern Greece. There are several traditions that go along with it as well. A modern Martes bracelet is made from red and white thread, sometimes with an evil eye bead loop in to bring the wearer luck. Most commonly, the Martes bracelet is worn from March 1st until 31st in Greece. In some regions, Greeks wear their bracelets until the first sign of spring or until the end of May. When you take the bracelet off, the tradition says to tie it to a blossoming tree.
Thank you everyone for your wonderful sharing of your stories and culture. We will see each other again tomorrow. God bless and goodbye.
Goodbye and thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.